to the four individuals that spoke to us. I served on Lloydminster City Council in the 80s, and our community at that time was 17,000 people. It's now roughly double that size, and we still largely have a volunteer fire department. And people are surprised to hear that. And I know there are some changes that are in the works there, but I don't think that, you know, it's interesting about the study, Peter, that you mentioned in 2009, because I don't think people of Alberta as a whole recognize the contribution that volunteers make to the fire protection services in this province. Just how much of the province is actually covered by volunteers, not by paid full-time firefighters. And if you want that brought home, you just need to attend the ceremony that we were at earlier this year. And I know MLA Van Dyken was there and MLA Littlewood was there. And, you know, it's a little too bad that we didn't have more of our colleagues there, because I think it's a recognition of the contribution that is made cooperatively between municipalities, between the volunteer firefighters and their families. And I think, Peter, that you correctly pointed out that that's a really critical component of this, as well as the employers. And you know, I personally think that this is about achieving some sort of proper balance between, you know, the rights and the obligations of the employee to be a volunteer and to serve and to, you know, go out on calls when they're called upon, but very clearly employers need to be able to run their businesses. And I know many times I asked myself when I was running our business in Lloydminster what I would do if I had somebody came to me as an employee that said, I've just volunteered for the fire department. Because there's a lot of situations, Al, we're milking all the time in our business. I like to say that there's not very many things at a veterinary clinic that you can just drop and walk away from. And if I had an employee that told me, well, I'm going to need to be able to, you know, go to emergency calls and that sort of thing, I would really have a problem working that out with that employee. Would I want to support that employee? Yes, absolutely. Would I want to support our volunteer fire department? Yes, absolutely. And certainly we did everything we could in our municipality. So a few of the questions that I have rising out of 201, I guess first of all, as we look across volunteer fire services across the province, I see that we have some that are doing exceedingly well as far as the recruitment and retention. And I note that amongst their members, they have a lot of young members, so that there's certainly the potential that we could have some very long-standing members in the works, some that have only been part of the fire service for a few years. But I also note that there are some services that are struggling to attract members. There are also some services where the vast majority of the members have 20+ years of service, and I don't see a lot of young members. And I'm just wondering, Peter, could you comment on what is the tipping point between the services that seem to have a very good recruitment program and those that don't, and how would 201 impact that?
Well, as I had mentioned in the beginning of my presentation, is the whole aspect of our fire service looking at how we can support the volunteer fire service in our province from recruiting and retaining volunteer firefighters, and that created that answer the call package in the program. Mm-hmm. And the biggest impact is that fire departments that are actually are doing a good job in their communities have impacted all the recommendations that we put forth, and we're working towards building those recommendations of, one, public awareness, let them know who's who in the community, who they are as volunteers, what they do, where they work, all those kind of communications. Creating relationships and events, so it's not just a firefighter department, it's a family fire department, so the family now is participating. The business community is involved, as we're alluding to here, is that the business community. Successful fire departments are surviving because they built into a program that recognizes all those barriers that created those problems in the beginning. The challenge we have is, and again, and I know the challenge is how to get people involved is how we communicate and how we message that, right? If people truly understand, and that's why I go to back to that, if you could see yourself in this picture, and I can ask everybody in the room here, is anybody here a volunteer firefighter? Because I'll ask this every time I do this presentation. Is one volunteer firefighter? Excellent, good job. Why? Because he wants to be a part of his community. Why aren't the rest of you? My question is, and I ask that, do you not see yourself in this picture? Anybody in your community can be a volunteer firefighter with the right dedication, commitment, training, and education. You too can be a volunteer. So when we talk about the demands of being a volunteer, it's not that there isn't people there. We just haven't reached out to the right people and get them to understand who we are as a service, what we provide as a service, and what we need. Because the thought is always that it's the 18-year-old macho firefighter's got to, that's who you're looking at. No, that's not who you're looking for in your communities. These small communities will take anybody and everybody anybody will help survive the fire service. And that creates the partnerships with the business people, the families, and your community and the fire service. Those relationships build. You have a sustainable, viable, volunteer fire service, like you said in Lloyd, still a volunteer service. City Cameras, still a volunteer service. We're 20,000 people, still running volunteers. Excellent relationships. That's why we are strong. Those that are struggling, we need to get to those communities that need the help. That's what we do as an organization. That's what we need from help, from support from government to help. That's all these little departments are looking for.
So Peter, those communities that are struggling, does 201 help them or hinder them?
Hinder them. Only because that's one of those barriers that we're creating. We're creating a separation between the employer and the volunteer service world now. Okay. So it will hinder them in the long run because now you're putting pressure on them.
A second question that I had, and I think this relates to the volunteer fire workforce, if you want to use that term. Is there some ratio or calculation in terms of, the number of firefighters that is an ideal number for a given number of fire calls and number of call-outs? I won't say fire calls because Al pointed it out, there's an increasing number of call-outs that are related to medical emergencies and car accidents, that sort of thing. But is there a magic number in terms of the redundancy that you need or the number of additional individuals that you need within a fire service, recognizing that at any given call out you won't get 100% of your members because 100% of your members aren't going to be available? So is there a number?
Well, when you talk about numbers, there is a number that you need to sustain an operation, right? So in order to be able to provide a service, you have to have that. The interesting thing, it comes back down to that, the question is, we do not have any rules or regulations that actually legislated regulations because we have no fire regulations. So every community is on their own and decided, because we don't have to have a fire service. Nobody has to have a fire service. And then you decide what you want for a fire service. Nobody tells you, there's no rules. Our chief's organization is working to build that and giving you some guidelines so we know what kind of levels of service you need to provide and then what kind of training those people need to have. And that will give you the numbers that you need to require. So a small community will know soon, once we finish our program, that they will need X amount of people in order to sustain a fire service if they can't sustain that. But again, it comes back to that question is there's a lot of people in our communities that we're not reaching out to that you can get those numbers. But yes, there is numbers that need to be there to provide a service safely and efficiently.
Yeah, if I may also add to that, like Chief Critch mentioned, there's not a legislated number or a clear-cut number. But as an example, one of the stations in Lacombe County Fire Service has 36 members currently on their roster. Their ideal number is 44, and they have that many so that they can average 12 per response. Okay. And so roughly a quarter, roughly 4 times the amount of members you need to have when you get a call is kind of a safe bet, in my opinion, for how many members you need on your department.
So in the non-fire department position, but talking in the communities, and it's not just my community, but many, the changing dynamics of what the service that the fire services are providing does create challenges also. And the employers that I talk to over the years have no issue with responding to fires. They have no issues with responding to life or death accidents on the highways. But where the employers start to struggle in their support at times is when they're being called out to do the ambulance lift assists or when they're being called out to do those responses. That makes it the response from the firefighter is, I got to go do my response. There's no doubt about it. But the employer, when that employee comes back and said, yeah, we had to help lift a guy my size into an ambulance because they didn't have the capacity to do that without the fire department there, that puts pressure on recruitment from an employer's supportive recruitment approach. So I just needed to add to that. You know, when I look at even in my county, being around Olds, when I look at the responses we have, only 40% of our responses are fire.
Yep.
And 35% of our responses are to Highway 2. And then there's all the other highways and all the other stuff. But you know, it's changed. In my 14 years being on council, those numbers have completely changed. And it creates a lot of stress on these people and puts extra stress on the volunteerism because you're being called out more unexpectedly.
Thank you, Chair.
We'll go to members on the phone. I got Member McPherson.